Good afternoon, this is William, and welcome to the latest installment of I Was a Teenage Daydreamer, where I discuss mostly music, some literature, some film, and some random things that I enjoy, and hopefully you do as well. This video, I want to give a quick shout out to, for me, the major event that happened a week ago today over in Birmingham, England, July 5th, 2025, and that was the Back to the Beginning festival featuring the final performances ever of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, and along with a star-studded ensemble of metal heroes, some bands that I like a lot, some bands I don't care for, but it was a big day for heavy music, and I watched the highlights that were coming out on social media throughout the day, and it was very emotional in a lot of ways for me. I've been listening to Ozzy since I was a kid in middle school. Of course, I've known about him infamously for years as the beheader of bats when I was younger and someone to be afraid of. But my friend Kevin Stanley bought the first Black Sabbath and Paranoid and the first two Ozzy solo albums, and he burned like a best of for me. Well, not burned, but recorded onto a cassette. And that was my introduction to Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne formally. And, I went from there. As far as Ozzy's solo career goes, I pretty much stopped after No Rest for the Wicked. Uh, I like Zakk Wylde as a player a whole lot, but I saw him on the No More Tours tour. I thought that album was kind of cheesy and sell out and mainstream and weak and not what the Prince of Darkness should be about. And then when he came back a few years later with the Retirement Sucks tour and more albums, I just knew that it was not going to be for me. And, his wife Sharon, as his manager, has done a great job of promoting him and keeping him, healthy and, in the public eye and infamous. But, I could also say some detrimental things as well that I won't. And it's just really, it's not for me. But I'm glad that he has continued to be popular and successful. He really is a good guy, a really nice guy. Crazy without a doubt, but sincerely so. And just the interviews I've seen and interactions I've seen with fans and things like that, it's just amazing. I saw him talk with a police officer one time about how he had seen them at such and such place, and Ozzy said, "Oh yeah, when we opened up for Grand Funk Railroad," and I was like, "Whoa, how do you remember that?" It's just phenomenal. Just a great guy. Uh, and as far as Black Sabbath goes, that is without a doubt my favorite heavy band. Of course, I love the Ozzy years. I love the Dio years. I love the Seventh Star album with Glenn Hughes on vocals. I don't dislike Born Again. I'm not a huge Ian Gillan fan, but that album, that really does have some really nice moments, and it does grow on me as the years go by. And then the Tony Martin era is that's for the hardcore fans, and there are some really good songs and albums from that as well. So I have kept up with them. Didn't really pay much attention to the 13 reunion from several years ago. But as far as the brand Black Sabbath itself and the continued popularity of their music, I think that's wonderful and fantastic that they could still sell out huge stadiums playing the kind of music that they do, and everyone knows the lyrics. I think it's fantastic. So as far as the performance itself, Ozzy's health is pretty much deteriorated, and that's awful to see. But at the same time, the way they brought him out in that big black throne, I thought was really cool. The sets were predictable. My buddy Bill and I went back and forth and pretty much nailed both sets down. We both thought that No More Tears would be on there, but instead it was I Don't Know, which I think is great. I love that song. So that was a nice surprise for me. The Sabbath set, I wish they played Children of the Grave, but I was happy with what they did do. So, that was great. And then, all the bands leading up to it, I was very impressed, especially by the stars that showed up. Steven Tyler showing up was really cool. The selection of songs played, especially deeper cuts from Black Sabbath, like Hole in the Sky and Johnny Blade. I just, man, super cool that real fans were coming out and not just doing the obvious cuts. And then, of course, while this was Tom Morello's deal as far as assembling, especially the supergroups and things like that, I have to say that the MVP was Nuno Betancourt, and just seeing the interviews afterwards, and Tom was like, "Can you learn this song? Can you learn this song? Can you learn this song?" Wow, what a great player he is. I always have a respected Extreme, even if I'm not a huge fan, and I've always thought his playing was amazing. And I thought, he's playing the gig of a lifetime for him right there. And he was very enthusiastic about it. But the part that really, really stood out to me was when they brought out Jake E. Lee to play a few songs, including, what would be, I suppose, his signature song, Bark at the Moon. Growing up as a kid, Jake E. Lee was very maligned in metal lore, especially amongst us younger ones who, we weren't the original generation for Ozzy and all that. I mean, I was a middle schooler in the late 80s, so Ozzy had been around for 15 plus years at that point, almost 20. And Jake E. Lee was considered to suck. And the only reason he was considered to suck is because he had the daunting task of taking over officially for Randy Rhoads after his untimely passing in 1982. Of course, there were a couple of players in between there, Bernie Torme for a little bit, and then Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, who, if you've never heard the live album Speak of the Devil, which is all Black Sabbath songs, that is something to behold. It is a fantastic live album. Brad Gillis destroys on guitar, and he takes Ozzy to a new level. And it might be my favorite live album of all time. I keep it in the car always, especially when I'm driving on a long trip, and I stick that thing in when I get tired, and it boosts me every single time. Anyway, I digress. Poor Jakey Lee, again, had the daunting task of being the guy to permanently replace someone who was already canonized as a guitar legend before his gravestone had been set up on his grave. I mean, Randy Rhoads was and is loved and truly a fantastic guitar player. Even Lemmy said he was fine. Maybe the best thing he ever did was die. I had a coworker who was 10 years older at one point who said the best thing he ever did was die. And he was a big Jake E. Lee fan, and he helped turn me around in my 20s to appreciating Jake E. Lee. Badlands was okay, but where he really shines the most are his two albums with Ozzy, and my favorite being Bark at the Moon, with the title track being one of the greatest guitar licks of all time and every much as iconic to me as Crazy Train. It's just a fantastic song, fantastic lick, amazing playing. The solo is incredible. And what was really great at the show is they kept calling his name, and it took him a little bit to come out. And when he did, everyone went nuts. And Nuno especially just gave him a whole lot of praise and homage and honor. I mean, it was really great to see him embrace the way he was, because, he left the band, under a bad cloud over songwriting credits and things like that. And again, being the whipping boy, because he took the brunt for not being Randy Rhoads. And of course, Zach comes in as the new hotshot guitar player, and everyone embraced him and loved him. And Jakey Lee just kind of faded into obscurity. And it really stinks, because he is a fantastic player. And for him to come out and play the way he did after being shot several times just a few months earlier and recovering enough to come out and play. And just from what I've seen in interviews and what I've read, Nuno was really integral in boosting his confidence and getting him back out there on stage. And I think it was just a triumphant moment for him, where he's finally getting the praise and the honor that he is due as a fantastic guitar player. It stinks that he doesn't have a larger catalog. I mean, he was with Rat, he was with Rough Cut in earlier days. No official albums or anything like that. He's got a really cool solo album called A Fine Pink Mist that's worth checking out. And then those 3 Badlands releases and the 2 with Ozzy and, a few other things here and there. And it really stinks that he has not. I mean, he's of course well known and people that like metal and blah blah blah, but the more limited metal fans are not going to know who he is, and I really hope that the performance last week shines a brighter light on him and how fantastic he was, and where while he's not able to play exactly the way he could back then, um, those chops are still there in a lot of ways. And again, he is the one that wrote some iconic riffs for the Prince of Darkness on 2 albums. One that is grossly overlooked, Ultimate Sin, gets panned a lot, but there's some really nice moments on that. And then Bark at the Moon, which was, again, it had to be the follow up to 2 stellar albums in the Randy Rhoads years. So, whatever happens in the future with Ozzy, he says he's going to continue. I don't think he's going to perform anymore. I hope this isn't a like cop out type deal where they're going to get back together or whatever, because they did raise almost $200 million for charity, which I think is phenomenal. Way to go, metal world, for making that happen. But yeah, I would like to see Ozzy do some more things. I know, again, I haven't listened to anything in a long time, but he always seems to love what he's doing, and that's what really music is all about. And of course, Tony and Geezer and Bill, you know, I hope they continue to play music. I have kept up with some of their side stuff. Bill's got a fantastic solo album from many years back. Uh, and Jakey Lee, maybe that'll open the door for him, and he could start putting out some more stuff, and maybe some things that are in the vaults that he can release. I don't know. Anyway, so that's my shout out, longer than I intended it to be, to Black Sabbath, to Ozzy Osbourne, to Nuno Betancourt for just being such a cool guy, and for Jakey Lee for being the underdog that I feel like is finally triumphant. I mean, him sitting on stage with Ozzy, and Ozzy has his hand on his shoulder. I hope that's a real picture. I mean, you can't believe the internet anymore with AI, but I really hope that's a real picture, because wow, wow, wow. That was moving to me, and I actually posted that on social media. I rarely post anything, but I did, because that was a whole lot to me. Anyway, so if you saw it, if you're a fan of Jakey Lee, Ozzy, whatever, let me know what you think. Click like and subscribe if that is your deal. But what's most important, keep doing what you love. Thanks.